Reducing workplace bias. The empathy gap reflects an inability to identify emotions in oneself and others, and the impact such emotion plays in communication and decision-making. Understanding emotions in oneself and others is the key to effective communication, which is essential for success. Without the ability to empathize, you will have a distorted view of not just other people, but of the entire world. The lesson and meditation will increase your awareness in general and specifically help you identify and manage emotional states. Without this ability, you will be isolated and lost. The empathy gap refers to the inability to accurately judge emotions and the impact thereof in oneself or in others. Obviously, these can lead to serious issues in relationships, communication, and decision-making. Empathy gaps are divided into hot and cold, depending on whether one is in a heightened state of arousal, hot, or a neutral state, cold. The hot-cold empathy gap is one in which people underestimate the power of visceral drives on their own and others' attitudes and behaviors. The empathy gap is based on the notion that human perception, and thus thinking, is state-dependent. When we're angry, it is hard to imagine peace and calm. When we're exhausted, it's hard to imagine being rested, and so on. If we have an empathy gap when we're in a hot state, we don't appreciate how much our physical state is driving our thoughts and behavior, and thus certainly making us much more susceptible to cognitive biases of all sorts. When we are in a cold state, we don't appreciate how a hot state can lead us astray in our thoughts and actions. This can mean we are caught unawares when we do get into a hot state because we haven't anticipated the effect and planned accordingly. The empathy gap also can factor into your relationships with others. If you are in a leadership or managerial position, the empathy that comes with good emotional intelligence is essential to not just understand your colleagues and subordinates, but also to establish meaningful and positive relationships with them too. For example, if as a manager or a leader, you fail to recognize that you have alienated a team member, you have two problems. The first is that you have upset that person, and because you don't recognize the problem, you have also failed to act in order to either explain, apologize, or placate them. In the eyes of your teammate, you are now not just a poor communicator, but an arrogant operator, disinterested in other people's feelings. The vicious cycle can become a vortex of anger and frustration. One of the keys to communication is that people will remember how you make them feel more than anything. If you treat them with respect, trust, honesty, and authenticity, they will be very likely to return those attributes and align with you. If, however, you do the opposite, then you will have lost all your influence over them. Sure, they might have to go along with what you say because of the role of authority in the organization, but you will ultimately pay the price in one way or another, from disengagement to outright sabotage, from silence to a smoldering fury. And because emotion drives the narrative, someone who is mad at you for being so insensitive will surely create and put out into the world very negative narratives about you, your performance, communication skills, and personality. An empathy gap is not a good trait for someone in a leadership or management role. In fact, it's a recipe for disaster. Meditation. When you show deep empathy towards others, their defensive energy goes down, and positive energy replaces it. That's when you can get more creative in solving problems. Stephen Covey. Empathy is the starting point for creating a community and taking action. It's the impetus for creating change. Max Carver. If your emotional abilities aren't in hand, if you don't have self-awareness, if you are not able to manage your distressing emotions, if you can't have empathy and have effective relationships, then no matter how smart you are not going to get very far. Daniel Goleman. You must understand the impact of your emotions on your thoughts and actions. You must also understand the impact of emotions on other people's thoughts and actions. You cannot allow yourself to be overwhelmed by visceral states like anger, fatigue, stress, and frustration. You must recognize them for what they are, manage them accordingly, and not allow them to interfere with your actions, thoughts, and especially your decision-making. Your relationships with others will depend on how you make them feel. If you cannot relate to their feelings, there will be a huge disconnect. You will lose their respect and their engagement and talents. You have to learn to walk in your own shoes before you can walk in the shoes of others. You have to learn to walk in your own shoes before you can walk in the shoes of others. When you show deep empathy towards others, their defensive energy goes down, and positive energy replaces it. That's when you can get more creative in solving problems. Great leaders and managers know that empathy is the starting point for creating a community. Great leaders and managers know that empathy is the impetus for creating change. Great leaders and managers know that without empathy for themselves and others, they will not operate rationally. Empathy is the basis of understanding. Empathy is the basis of rational thinking. If your emotional abilities aren't in hand, if you don't have self-awareness, if you are not able to manage your distressing emotions, if you can't have empathy and have effective relationships, then no matter how smart you are not going to get very far. Great leaders and managers know that empathy is the basis of self-awareness, and without such awareness, you cannot succeed. Great leaders and managers know that if they can't manage distressing emotions, they will not get very far. Great leaders and managers know that if they don't have empathy and have effective relationships, then no matter how smart they are not going to get very far. You have to learn to walk in your own shoes before you can walk in the shoes of others. Great leaders and managers know that empathy is the starting point for creating a community. Great leaders and managers know that empathy is the impetus for creating change. Great leaders and managers know that without empathy for themselves and others, they will not operate rationally. Empathy is the basis of understanding. Empathy is the basis of rational thinking. Empathy is the starting point for creating a community and taking action. It's the impetus for creating change. If you are not able to manage your distressing emotions, if you can't have empathy and have effective relationships, then no matter how smart you are not going to get very far. Reducing workplace bias.